Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee for Closers. Alex Wellings here. We have a very special episode for you today. We're talking with some very bright minds in the world of software advancement in the retirement planning world. I'm excited to talk about this with everybody. In fact, over the last few years, we've spent a lot of time looking for the best softwares out there, honestly. And I don't know about the viewers out there, if you guys have also had this trouble. I have struggled to find a software that does a good job of solving for the variables in retirement planning. Those variables being, how long are we going to live? What should be the rate of return that we assume? What potentially would be the cost of later in life care, like long-term care costs? And a lot of softwares have us input our assumptions on those things. I feel like that skews the reality and makes it a more subjective report and leaves it to our prospects to debate with us and, it derails the conversation completely. So over the last few weeks, I've been in talks with a group that has specialized in, over the years, we've talked many times over the last few years, but specialized in helping to advance the science of retirement planning in general. And they've done some really incredible things from in the world of projecting out one's life expectancy. And so today we're talking with a group of fellas that are working with a group called WealthSpan. They have an incredible product, an incredible reporting software. And today we're going to unpack that software, what it does for clients out there, how it presents to the client. And we're also joined by their special guest and partner, Mr. Dr. Jay Olshansky, who is a professor in sociology that has a ton of experience in this world. And we're going to be talking again about maybe the real world implications of some of the data that we're collecting. So without any further ado, I want to welcome our group guests, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Thanks. All right, guys. So, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this. Obviously, Jeff, we've had the pleasure of talking a whole bunch to this point about the software, how it works. I know you've got an incredible amount of experience. We're going to unpack a lot of that stuff today and more. Dr. J, I almost feel a little strange calling you Dr. J, to be honest with you. It sounds like the basketball player, but maybe you prefer, I don't know. But Doctor, great to meet you. I've heard nothing but awesome things. I do believe that we had been on the phone at least once in years past. I'd heard you at least speak a time or two. But thank you for taking some time out of your day, for spending it with us and sharing a little bit about this. You guys have put together an incredible software, so kudos to you. Jeff, do you want to maybe summer up the inspiration and where this all came about? Maybe the history of how we started down this path? Or maybe, Doctor, I don't know if you'd be better suited to do that. Either of you can feel free to take it.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, meeting Dr. J and sort of his expertise behind aging science is really sort of what kicked this all off. I come from 20 plus years in financial services, helping advisors to really become better at what they do, and often they're trying to find a way to get in front of more clients, A, but B, when they're in front of clients, to just provide more value to them, to make themselves look different, and ultimately to create better outcomes for clients. And we worked with hundreds of advisors over the years. We've done thousands of financial plans for their clients. And every time we ran a plan, we planned for those clients that lived at age 95 or 100, or looked at what the Social Security Administration had to say, always knowing that they were averages or best guesses at best. And so how are we creating the best outcomes for clients when we know that we're using averages and some assumptions or guesses to try to get to a good outcome for them and put together a plan for them? And then, we met Dr. J and learned about his background and how we could apply aging science to the process and really get more hyper personalized about the planning that we do and the real prospects for longevity for clients. And it sort of was just this marriage that came together where we could add aging science to the financial planning process to create those better outcomes we've always been hoping for.
Did you have troubles with softwares in the past? Like, I mean, like I was having, like to this point, until we started having these discussions, I'm still using a software right now that's, we just run it to age 100 and we hope for the best. But that's great. I mean, potentially it's just gravely overstating the circumstance, right? And saying, hey, let's be as safe as possible. We're gonna really spend very little, you know.
Yeah, exactly right. And we kind of feel like that's a disservice to clients, right? I mean, if they're being told that they need to have money available to live to age 100, and their real prospects for longevity have them living maybe to their mid 80s, like why would you not use your money to accomplish all the things you want to when you're younger and healthier and want to, check those things off the bucket list for retirement? When somebody's telling you you got to save that money because you're going to live to 100, I mean, it just feels like you're doing a disservice to clients at that point,
Yeah.
without having some basis for the recommendations.
Yeah, and you almost feel like I feel like the advisors almost feel like they're doing the greatest service by telling them to be so cautious, but it really is kind of this double-edged sword. The best thing is trying to get as close as possible to that number. Doctor, I see you shaking your head. Maybe give us some background on your experience, and then maybe give us your thoughts on just how this all came about.
Sure. So I've been a professor of public health at the University of Illinois for the last 23 years, and I was in the Department of Internal Medicine at the University of Chicago for a decade prior to that. My expertise is in aging, longevity, estimating how long people can live. And so, while it's not possible to predict precisely how long someone is going to live, the science of aging um, and the background that we bring allows us to quite reliably predict whether or not you're likely to live longer or shorter than average. And we can estimate quite well how many years of healthy life individuals are likely to have, how many years of frailty and disability they're likely to have. It provides a pretty good guidepost for people that are planning for the future. And if you're being told that you need to plan for 100, there's less than a 5% chance that you're going to be right. And so if you're trying to save for that many years and your prospect of living that long is extraordinarily low, it is a huge disservice to people because they don't have access to the money, or at least they're deciding not to spend it while they're healthy. Um, we know how many healthy years of life people are likely to have based on their personal attributes. So in the end, what we do is we create what we call a hyper-personalized assessment of lifespan, health span, and care span for each individual that runs through this process. And then we compare partners. And that's where the real science comes into play, where you look at the relative longevity gaps between husband and wife, for example, as an illustration of how they need to plan better for the future. It is quite an emotional event when you go through this and you see in real numbers what the likelihood is for how long you're likely to live. And this isn't all about, death. It's about life and how to utilize your financial resources best to enjoy your health and quality of life while you have it. It is transformative and it is emotional for people that go through it. And in the end, that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, undoubtedly. Maybe talk a little bit about how you get to that point, because that was really interesting to me. I when I went through just kind of the walkthrough, the demo version of it, I was very intrigued, obviously. But maybe explain how that came to be with the selfie and the strategic questions that are coming around. How does that come to mean and get us down to a number?
Well, so what we do is we do encourage people to upload photographs of their faces. It's a long story, but the short version is that the face actually is what we call a viable biomarker for the rate at which you're aging. So people who have younger face ages, in other words, if you're 70 years old and you look like you're 50, um, chances are you're aging more slowly. Your biological clock is ticking at a slower rate. It's a signal that you're likely to live longer. We then add in a series of questions, and it's no more than about 12 questions, depending on gender. And it's designed to really provide a placement as to where you are and where you're likely to be in terms of health and longevity going forward. Could we ask 100 questions or 500 questions? Sure. But you reach a point of diminishing returns. We've made something that is ordinarily very complicated, very simple. You could run through this analysis in about 3 minutes, quite frankly. We intentionally kept it simple. We use what are called the social determinants of health. It's not rocket science. We know that people that smoke live shorter, people that don't smoke live longer, people that have healthy weight live longer. We use a whole series of attributes of individuals. We combine them together as the basis for generating an estimate for survival. We do use some unusual attributes. For example, in women, we look at age at menopause. Women who go through age at menopause late live significantly longer than women who go through natural menopause early. Education is a powerful predictor. So there's a whole suite of variables that we look at, and it varies by age. So marital status is critical. If you're an older male and you are without a partner, it is a significantly different outcome for you than if you're an older male with a partner. The various ages between the husband and wife is relevant. There's a longevity difference that's baked into our biology. So all of this is brought to bear in a simple, fast analysis that yields extraordinarily valuable information for people that help them plan how to use the resources that they have to enjoy life as much as possible. And it's all about enjoying life, not about planning for death.
Sure, sure. And so, Jeff, maybe while we get with Kirk here and see, because I see Kirk has just joined us now, when we get that number, right? So once we figure it out, okay, this is how long likely this person will live, and as Dr. J is saying, as close as we can, maybe we could get from 86 years old to 86.7 with another 50 questions, but what do we do with that now? So when we take that number, how does your report now display this information in a way that's digestible, or how it relates to their financial wellness?
Yeah, so really we're just determining that what we would say is an endpoint to the plan. Now, again, there's going to be some variability. We don't, with 100% certainty, provide an assessment for the date of death. Obviously, nobody can do that. What we do as a part of the report, though, is provide a personalized life table for these clients based on the answers that they provided and the science that's involved, so that we can tell someone their probability of living to each age up to age 100. So they might have an assessed age of 88 as the end date for their plan, but we'll be able to show the probability of them living to 89, 90, 91, all the way out to 100. So as a financial advisor, you do have some, I would say, discretion for the age that you plan for, with giving a client a really good understanding of what the true age really does look like. And it sort of creates the foundation for the creation of a plan. And that's just the planning side of it. There's this other, psychological side of the process. When people come in, they've never been through this process with a financial advisor before. Most people can see straight away the value in going through this process, so that you are creating a more hyper-personalized plan for them. Instead of, every other advisor they may have worked with is kind of just guessing or not talking about it at all. And so having the conversation makes you stand out as an advisor. Aside from the financial planning that we do, it makes you look different. It likely makes you look better. It helps you earn more trust. And because it's a process that clients have never been through before, you likely become much more referable to these folks' friends, because they're going to tell people about the process that they just went through.
Yeah, I think you're undeniably separating yourself from any other experience out there with something like this. If you could say to me right now that I would be coming in, sitting down with a client, getting down to brass tacks of how long they may live, I'd be seriously able to drive a wedge between what we are doing and what their advisor currently has done. Kirk, maybe talk to us a little bit about how that process looks. Like, how do you draw a client in? What does that first appointment look like when you sit down and you finally start talking to them and you say, hey, what we're doing today is going to be a little different maybe than what you've done elsewhere. We're going to zero in on how long your life is, and this is how we do it. Maybe walk us through how this sales process using this software looks like, at least for you.
Yeah, so the first appointment is just like you said. You're taking them through your process, starting that meeting, getting to know why they're there, and obviously you need to make that connection to understand anything, and to see if they're going to be a good fit for you, and if you're gonna be a good fit for them. But at a pivotal moment is where I'm looking at uh, the financial house, if you will. So looking at the whole picture to say, these are all the concerns that I'm going to be looking at and how I'm thinking, be it long term care, healthcare costs, be it taxes, be it outliving your money, and those are the things that you start to think about. And then I bring in, but we need to find that foundation. And one of those pieces is, how long are you going to live? And what is your life expectancy? No, we don't know the exact date, but to plan properly, to have a hyper personalized plan, we need to understand what that life expectancy is. And at the same time, we're looking at your healthy life expectancy, so your health span, and then also your care span to see what that time period in the future potentially looks like that you're going to need care, because the part of your life where you become more frail and you need more help is a very important part of life. Because um, by talking about this with the clients, you're getting them to understand that you're not just looking at the money, right? And that's what most advisors are doing. They're opening up statements and they're saying, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Well, it doesn't matter. If you don't know that future outlook, then how do you really put a proper plan together? So when you're speaking with the client, you're bringing them into that moment to say, we're looking at these key pieces to your life, not when you're going to die, but how long are you going to live and what are you going to do with that time? Because now that changes how you're sitting there and interacting with the client now. Because they've always looked at people saying, oh, what are you going to sell me? What insurance and all this other stuff? And they've always kind of pictured it as that. Like, I got to die, so I'm not going to benefit from it. Or, it's just another insurance I got to pay for that I'm never going to use, like maybe car insurance or homeowners insurance. So it's getting that type of fog away from them and really getting them to look at, hey, I have the rest of my life to live. And now we're introducing this technology to you that's going to say, here is your life expectancy. Here is your spouse's life expectancy. They are going to be different. And then there's also this time in your life that you are going to need care and your spouse may not be there. So this is why we are trying to help you understand those time periods. But at the same time, how are you going to live through that? One, emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, because your partner might not be here. And that's an important thing to understand. So then we can bring in the other advocates, your kids, friends, whoever is going to be helping you during that time period. You need to be prepared.
Yeah, I don't. I see that so clearly because when we sit down with clients here, we have them come in, we sit down with them, we try to explain to them that yeah, you're going to spend a ton of money more than likely right out the gate in retirement. You're going to come out and you are going to go travel and you are going to go have a lot of fun. Tom Hegna, who we've had on the show before, popularized that the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go years, right? And what we tried to really convince is like, look, you're going to spend a lot of money here, and sure, that'll be some of the more expensive times of your retirement. It might take a little dip in that slow-go period, but the most expensive time of your life is likely to be that last third of retirement. And that has a lot to do with the rising cost of long-term care, not only for yourself, but also, too, that of your spouse down the road. And your software does such a great job of illustrating that point. It was almost like a, oh my gosh, eureka moment. I'm so interested to get into that. Kirk, I see you something to say.
because you brought up a key moment,
Yeah.
and you tell people that they're going to spend that money in that first time period, right? Well, what happens when they see this comparison between husband and wife, spouse, partner, whatever it is? There's that aha moment that says, "Hey, we don't have time. We got to make sure we do these things because guess what? We think about it, but we don't want to think about that that time in the future. But it also, Alex, it also pushes people to say, yeah, I do need to do those things. Where still so many people want to push that off even into the future and say, well, we're going to take our time. And so many clients now have looked at it and said, no, we're going to plan, just like you said, we're going to plan these next 10 years, be it. And we probably will spend a little extra money because we're going to go on those vacations. We're going to rent that RV. We're going to, go off to Europe. And now they see why, because not that we're giving them at some point in the future that just stops, but now they can see it. Now they can see that there's something in the future that says, I may not be able to do these things later. We need to plan for these now. And what I've seen come of that, and this is what advisors really need to understand, is that emotional connection. That emotional connection between you and you and the clients, but between the spouses, the partners that you have, and if people have been doing this long enough, they know this is one of the hardest conversations for spouses to have is about money. What I've seen is this brings them together more so than sometimes than they have ever been. They start talking again about things that they love, talking about the things that they want to do. And if you, as the advisor, are a part of that, do you think they're going to look to anyone else but you for
Not a
all the
chance.
help?
Not a chance. Not a
No,
chance.
you became part of the family. I know we're not supposed to be best friends, but they're going to look at you and go, "This is what you did for us." And now the other part of that is saying, "Yeah, now we have to plan for the future because there is this critical moment that we're going to need care." And it's going to cost some money, either here at home, in a facility, whatever. But we still need to be prepared for that because we don't want to be a burden on other people. We don't want to be a burden on ourselves. We want to be able to take care of ourselves and extend our life even further if we can.
Yeah. No,
Let me interrupt for
yeah, Jay, go
one
ahead. I
minute.
saw you with some colored commentary. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I have to leave in a couple of minutes, but I just want to tell you that my wife and I have gone through this process. Kirk is my advisor. It was indeed emotional when we saw the survival gap between the two of us and the planning that we had to do for our time together. But let me just tell you what happened afterwards, which I think is I suppose, gold for advisors. Sarah and I, my wife's name is Sarah, the two of us experienced a form of the only way I can describe it is a euphoric relief. Like finally we have a plan, and the plan is based on something that we can rely on. It's science based. We have a comfort level with it, and we have a plan in place, and that allowed us to sleep better at night, to plan, because we've now got everything set
Right.
for the future on what it is that we want to do, when we want to do it. We're financially secure in planning for some level of frailty and disability and the cost associated with that. So all I can say is that it brought us peace of mind. And that peace of mind for planning for retirement is worth its weight in gold for those of us that are considering retiring in the future. And I'm just telling you about our personal experience with this. It was a very powerful moment. My understanding is that everyone else who's gone through this process has experienced something similar.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I even felt it looking at somebody's report recently. They showed me this gap, and it showed the gap between the husband and wife being around 10, 12 years or something like that. And I was just, it was a very sobering moment for that second or two, because I'm thinking, wow, that's a decade a decade without each other, and you have a very small window together where, I'm 5 years older than my wife, and most of the time during the year, and so 5 years ahead of her in that aging process, plus a male, which counts against me a little bit. I've got a few less years potentially than she does, and she probably lives a bit of a healthier lifestyle than I do. Maybe, I don't know, but I'd say that it was sobering in the fact that I realized, kind of like, oh my goodness, when we do finally pull the trigger on that retirement, we're gonna have a very few select years to do all the things that we want to do. And I can imagine that you did have that euphoria. No, no, thank you, doctor. Thanks for being with us today. I appreciate that.
It was my pleasure, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the future.
All right, great, thank you. So Jeff, do you want to walk us through a little bit the information on the slide deck here, and just kind of show us through how this report works and so on?
Yeah, be happy to. And I think the best thing to do is just jump to the report. I mean, I don't think we need to go through all the questions. I think the audience probably understands that we're going to ask some questions about longevity in the family and height and weight so we can determine BMI, smoking status, exercise, all of the things that sort of has been determined by Dr. J to be those determinants of long life. But if you can see the screen here, it's just the front page of the report. So I'll kind of move on to the real meat of the report. And this is just based on, John Doe and some random answers to questions. But essentially, this is the information you want to get to. So John Doe, you can see the top line here is the assessed lifespan for him, 84.8 years. If we just look at the Social Security Administration, it looks at 85 is as a lifespan assessment for him. And remember that Social Security Administration is looking at age and gender only, so not looking at any of the other determinants. They got it pretty close on this one, and sometimes that will happen. And then, sorry, didn't mean to skip ahead just so quickly. I told you earlier we create a personalized life table for each client. So that's what you see here is the probability of living to each age out to age 100 for John. The next page is going to get into our health span information. We've spent some time talking about this, but you're going to have a certain number of years in your lifespan that we'll deem are going to be healthy. And then you're going to have a certain number of years near the end of your life that we call care span. And that's where you're going to have some level of frailty or disability, which is going to require some care, whether from a spouse or a family member or a caregiver or in a facility. So there can be some costs associated with that care for both spouses, and we dig into that a little bit in the report. The bottom part here is we don't just want to let people sort of believe that there's nothing that they can do to extend their lifespan and health span. So we've got these modifiable risk factors here: smoking, physical activity, BMI, and sleep, that someone can proactively take measures to help improve their lifespan and health span. And you can see here, based on the answers that were provided, if this client increased their physical activity, they would have a positive impact on their BMI. Sleep, the magic number of hours of sleep is 7 hours per night, just so you know. So they were either above or below that. And if they made those changes, they could increase their lifespan by 4.6 years. So that's a pretty meaningful thing to know. Everyone knows that they should eat better and they should get the right amount of sleep and they should be the right height and weight and not smoke. Everybody knows that. But when we quantify the difference that could make in your lifespan, I think that's where some eyes open and some life change can take place, because now they recognize, my gosh, my spouse is going to be without me for a certain number of years, but I could do something to impact the number of years that we would have together. And 4.6 years is not a meaningless number. Same thing for the spouse. So she made right decisions, has some longevity in her family, is likely to live a lot longer than her husband, and longer than the Social Security Administration would say by a decade, 10 years. Same information for her. She increased her physical activity a little bit. She could increase her lifespan by 1.2 years. Everything else was really in line. Then we kind of get into the real, this is the page that kind of brings it all together and really is eye-opening for clients. And Kirk, I'll just let you kind of take it from here, because you've worked with clients, you've seen the response from clients when they see this survival gap, and when the care spans take place on each of their lives. And So maybe just talk us through your experience with that, if you don't mind, Alex. I mean, you're the one asking the questions
No,
today.
no, yeah, Kirk, please.
So again, this is this moment, and that something happens because they see the survival gap, they see the care spans, they see the actual life expectancy and the health span, and they start to put it all together. And you just kind of let it go for a minute and let them look at it, because some one of them is going to really come up with this moment to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be alone." Even though I thought about it, it never became real, and now it's real. Like, there is this potential time period I'm going to be alone. And that's what you hear every time, and then you have to bring it back, but you also have to say, yes, this is the potential. So this is why preparation for not just that survival gap, but that care span time period, financially and mentally, becomes two of the biggest things that we have to worry about, because so many times people are not prepared for their spouse to die, and none of us are. However, making sure that those other things are in place to take care of you, potentially financially and mentally, having that support system around you is going to help you better be prepared for that time. Because in this case, in Jane Doe's case, she's not only going to be alone, but she's going to be pretty healthy for quite a few years and then potentially need care. So that is again causing another stream of emotions that's saying, wait a minute, now I have this whole time period that potentially I'm not just alone, but I'm healthy. What am I going to do? And now I'm going to have this time of frailty in my future. Who's going to help me? My spouse is gone. Now who's going to help me? So it's really all of that kind of starts to happen. And at the same time with John, his potential frailty starts at about 80, but Jane is, 70, in her late 70s, and is she going to be able to help him? So again, it's preparing for those little things, and people have always thought about it, but it never became real until it becomes real. And that's the bad part, because no one ever really prepares for that moment. Then they're just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? We have to make sure we get the proper care, when we make sure that we have the right money. And now there's this anxiety and stress that is being put on you at a time where you do not need added stress or anxiety, and this is a major concern. So again, when we're really not just trying to get people to prepare financially, we're helping people think differently about their life. And that advisor is there not to be some doctor or anything, but to really present this moment to say, yeah, you do have to think about this. Because someone's going to come back to me as the advisor and say, why didn't we prepare for mom and dad better in this situation? We had this information. And that's a big thing, is that the information exists now. We are able to give this to advisors. And when a client sees this once again, they're looking at you as the advisor. They've never looked at anybody like that. You're a part of this emotional moment. And it is your responsibility, truly, to help them take care of that now. And again, that's the exact words that are coming from the client. Kirk, how are we going to take care of this now? When you think about how many times that people have put together the greatest plan for their clients, doing the best service that they can possibly do for them, and they still say, I need to think about it. And that's the problem. People think about it for too long. This isn't about selling something, this is about helping people. And this particular slide shows your clients that you're not just thinking about their money, right? That you're truly thinking about their life. And now it's again going back to, how are you going to live your life now? You see, again, this is not exact. We're not performing some magic trick. But the point is is this is the potential for the rest of your life. So how do you want to live now, and how do you want to prepare for that future?
Yeah, I almost feel like when folks end up doing the "I want to think about it" dance, I need to think about this, and I think it's legitimate. It's founded. They want to think about
Sure.
it, but I do think that when they come to making those decisions, they're never going to be able to get to the end point that they really want, which is, well, how is this going to affect my scenario if I don't need this money, or how am I going to figure out how far or how long I'm going to need? Will I end up in a long-term care? And they want to go and research averages of how often do people actually utilize their long-term care insurance? How
Yep.
often do people die with money left over? How many times do people actually run out of money down the road? And I feel like, we try to educate our clients. That's a rabbit hole that is never ending,
Yeah.
because you're gonna find concurrence, especially on the internet, with whatever you Google. So if you Google something that's like, when do people typically use their long-term care? You're going to have articles that are in favor, and you're going to have just as many articles that are the opposite side of that coin, right? And you're going to find the same kind of scenario of like average age expectancies. The IRS has their tables, but everybody else has speculation. Will I run out of money? Well, sure, maybe my grandparents, they're claiming they never ran out of money, but they also had pensions and all these other things. The world we're talking about today, I mean, the complete dissolving of pensions really started in like the 80s, right? So those people are just now in their retirements right now. We'll see if they're running out of money, right? I mean, they're probably maybe towards the end of their retirement. But like people leaving the workforce without pensions is just now starting. And we just don't have the science. You're not going to get a good answer. This is the best thing I've seen as somebody in the financial world, and we get a lot of softwares, trust me. Somebody getting close to projecting that real world scenario of like, hey, this is, with the best science we have right now, how likely this scenario will play out for you. And it takes away a ton of the I need to think about it. It's what do you need to think about now?
Because you're making that emotional connection, and that is not some salesy word. That is truth. You are making that emotional connection with your clients, and that's what makes a difference in all the planning, because you were getting there, and maybe you said it, but it's that what I want to think about is I want to make sure in my head that this is a good plan. Well, we've put together the information to say it is, but there's not that emotional connection. So then that's why they want to go out to the internet, right? They want to, say they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. But it's really about how am I connected to this emotionally, physically, mentally. This does that. This brings that pure emotion to right to the forefront with your clients and with you. You are now a part of that. And when you're sitting across from somebody and showing him this screen, they don't think about anything else now. They think about how are we going to fix this, Kirk? What do we have to do? And then when they see a plan that you're putting together, saying, okay, well, this is why longevity and why do we got to make sure your money lasts, and potentially an annuity fits with that. Okay, we get that. Annuity is going to help our money last longer. And it may be an asset based long term care policy. Well, now we understand how that can fit into our future. And they understand it because they've emotionally connected to this situation to say, one, we can't keep putting this off. Two, these things make sense. And it's because they've taken that barrier. That barrier has come down to them because now they see it as a couple. And how many times, and be prepared for this, is there's real emotions that are going to happen. I have literally had people cry when they see this screen, and that is what what happens because they're seeing their life, and I always use it as the example, and I love it. I have kids, and if anyone has seen the cartoon movie Ratatouille, and when the bad guy at the end of the movie tastes the ratatouille, that fine dish, this ideas, this flow just goes back to him about this time in his life when he was young. Well, that's the same thing that's happening here. When they see the screen, they're thinking about their spouse, they're thinking about their grandchildren, they're thinking about their kids, they're thinking about what they want to do. And it says to them, you, Mr. Advisor, Mrs. Advisor, just connected with me like nobody else.
Yeah. I mean, I can feel it. I felt it when you went through it with me. Jeff, I mean, where does it go after this? So after we finish, we go through this. Now you get them in this raw emotional state. They're asking you, like, how do we solve this? Does the report go on more after this? Or is it more like, now we take it from here, let's put a plan together using another software? Or how does it go from here?
Yeah, it really is. It's the beginning point for a plan. So, and you're right. Like everyone has heard, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and this tells a story that you've been trying to tell as an advisor for a lot of years. That someone is gonna lose an income stream when this day comes. One of their social securities is going away, so we need to plan for this. Long-term care costs associated with it. We need to plan for that. And so this is sort of giving you the information to kind of dive into a financial plan. The one other thing that we provide is that cost of care. So earlier we showed the care span for John and Jane Doe. His was 4.3, hers is 6.5. So the state that the advisor is in, we've got all of the states loaded into the platform. So it's going to pull the median cost of care for a home health aide, assisted living, and nursing home. And it's just going to multiply that median cost times the care span for each of these three things. Now, you may not need full-time nursing care for the whole 4.3 years. It may be a combination of these things, but we know there's going to be a cost associated with providing the care. So this is just one other number that we provide that an advisor can then use and sort of build a plan around these outcomes, these scenarios where we've got the cost of care, along with needing to replace an income stream here that they lost because of a spouse, either from Social Security or pension or both. And so we've got these things, and it's just the basis for the planning that we'll do thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, it is just so powerful. It's like the best primer you could ever have for them to want to, okay, I get it. We're going to have an issue here. Income lost, assets decimated by long-term care, probably shortly before that income loss. Now, how do we plan for the rest of this? And I can see that transition happening very easily for folks to say, hey, and then this is going to be the foundation of our plan. We're going to try our best to accommodate this particular found struggle here, the 17-year age gap, along with the long-term care needs, along with trying to establish a retirement of our dreams, right? Like, so we could still do the things that we want to do. How do we accommodate all of this as the foundation? That's what we're going to use. Is that something you're interested in us putting together for you? And, boom, they're into that next thing. I imagine very few no's would come at that point. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I would say for sure that's right. Yeah, and one other thing to point out, I know, we like to create a wedge where we can with other advisors, and you can see they're 5 years apart, kind of just like you and your wife, Alex, 5 years apart. And if we plan for both of these folks to live to age 95, they would have had a survival gap of 5 years. So now we've shown them the survival gap is clearly much longer than that. So there's a much more meaningful differentiation for us and any other planner that they may have been working with or may be considering. So I just think there's lots of ways to use this to create a wedge and then to move them along in that process.
And can I just add on to that, is it's that wedge happens, but also the spouses coming together. Because over my 20 plus years, how many times that I've had one of the spouses say, "Oh, I don't need to be here. He takes care of it. She takes care of it. I don't need to worry about it. They'll make the decisions for you." And I've always been a stickler in that, as I know I want you both here. And still you would see the disconnect sometimes in those appointments where they're just not really paying attention. What I've seen with this, attention is there now. I mean, both spouses are on point. They're there. They want to know, hey, what's going on? How are we going to make it? And the great thing is a lot of times one of the spouses has no idea how good they already are. So they're living with this added anxiety that they don't need to have. And then they come to find out that, hey, we're actually okay, because they're not having these conversations together, which now we see because of this, because of seeing this, because of getting that raw emotion between them, they're coming together. And kind of like what Jay was just saying a few minutes ago, there's this moment of collective, well, he called it euphoria, but this coming together. And maybe a time that they have not done that for a long time, because things happen in relationships, and there's those little arguments about money, and well, now they're going, hey, it's time that we need to really talk to each other and understand, and I care, you care. And that's one of the other things I've seen, which is actually very, very emotional as an advisor, to kind of see that come together in front of your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is groundbreaking stuff, guys. I feel like you guys are right on maybe the precipice of building this entire thing into one of the greatest softwares of our industry. I really do. Kudos to you guys and Dr. J. It was really nice to have him on today. Final words, anything as far as to the advisors watching this about the WellSpan software, about where they can find it or access it, or how to reach out to you guys?
Well, Jeff, I just say something before that. I know you can finish that out real good, but
Sure.
one of the things that I love to tell advisors is, because we go into these appointments, you can be nervous, dealing with people, and trying to do your job, because you're meeting new people and you don't know them, they don't know you, and sometimes you have that same anxiety. What I feel like, that why that happens is because the clients are always putting that barrier up. They're not letting you in to who they are. And so that's hard to sit there with people when that happens. What I'm seeing with this, and when they go through this process and they see this comparison, there is almost like this immediate connection to you. And it gives you that ability now to relax as well. And because they're more relaxed and they're more attentive to you, and trusting you. So this is I think a great thing for a lot of advisors that have some of that anxiety. Even though they want to do a great job, they're super knowledgeable. They can get we can get nervous in those appointments. Well, what I've seen is, take that away. It starts to go away with this, because now the client trusts you, wants to understand more, wants to be a part of the process, wants to tell you as much as possible. And that's great for us.
Yeah, it feels a little more objective, a little less subjective, And I
Yep.
feel like a lot of
Yep.
clients come in thinking like, this is all subjective. I hope I agree with Kirk's opinion on things,
Yeah.
and if you guys agree, then you guys will be a good match for each other. But now it takes some of that objectivity out, or subjectivity out of it, and makes it a little more objective, and says, okay, he's making a lot of great points here. He's dealing with this a little more scientifically than I'd say others are. And then, yeah, your subjective opinion on how we solve those problems comes in. But now you've aligned yourselves a lot quicker, like you're saying,
Yeah.
getting a lot of those nerves out of the way, breaking down barriers. Great stuff. Jeff, any final words, or maybe even just some comments on how we can access or get in touch with you on the product?
Yeah, access, just reach out to me at jeff@wealthspan.ai, jeff@wealthspan.ai. That's an email address that you can just let me know that you have an interest. And we do personalize all the reports for advisors that are using it, so we get it customized for you. So we just like to have a conversation so we can gather that information, and then we create your access to the platform. It's a subscription-based platform, so for our friends at Megastar Advisors, we normally charge $149 a month. We're at $99 a month. It is month to month, so there's no long-term contracts. We think you're going to love it. We think it's going to make a difference in helping you differentiate yourself and and just create better outcomes for clients. Ultimately, that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do. So yeah, that's it. Jeff at Wealthspan.ai will put you in touch with me, and we'll make it happen.
Well, you heard it here first, guys and gals watching. Thank you so much for taking some time and learning a little more here at Coffee for Closers about the WealthSpan software. Really incredible stuff. Like Jeff said, an incredible discount, down about $50 a month for the software for anybody that's viewing through Megastar. Obviously, too, we've got Jeff's contact information in the show description here. And if you have any questions outside of that and you don't necessarily know who to talk to, feel free to reach out to us here at Megastar or at the Coffee for Closers team. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you both for being on the show today, and the good doctor, you pass along our thanks. We'll see you guys next time right here on Coffee for Closers. Take care.